What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Elevate Your Grind, brought to you by the Cannabis Lab. I am your host, Todd Rosales, and we're live from the Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference here in Chicago, Illinois. My first time doing it outside of Miami. I am joined by the CEO of Tilt Holdings, Tim Conder.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Thanks for having me. You're welcome.
I'm happy to have you too.
There's people have brought weed to this conference this year, so it has changed.
Do they not generally?
So I don't know how long you've been coming to this. So I started going to Benzinga in 2020, and it truly was like an investment capital conference.
Yeah.
And then what happened is we all needed money. So we all started coming here to find investors. And then we're like, well, you're here, I'm here. We might as well meet with each other. And it really started to become like an operator conference. So
I went in 2019, but haven't been since. But I bring weed with me everywhere I go. So
it was more underground. So like in the 2020 conference, and I hope Elliot and Patrick and Jason appreciate us talking about this. Like I was one of the few people who I actually was like outside was smoking. This last one in 2023, the entire front of the Fountain Blue was just people lighting up.
Yeah, that's good. That's the way it should be.
It should be. But it's great to have you. Tilt has always been kind to me. You guys let me into your world. Always been a big fan of the organization. So you are now at the helm of Tim.
Yes, sir.
Tilt, how is that going?
It's going great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a pretty, eventful 5 months since I started in the interim role and accepted the sort of permanent or full-time CEO role yesterday that we announced. And so it's great team, really wonderful partners. I think a lot of optimism about the future.
Sure. So I know you have a deep technology background in the industry. You know, how is it now being back at the helm of a true operator? You know, I know Tilt kind of started out, it's had so many different incarnations of it, from being almost like a holdco or a topco, and then finally into a true operator in Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and Ohio. You know, do you think your technology background, and obviously just understanding the cannabis industry in general, gives you that unique insight how to, take Tilt to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think the like sort of maybe a unique perspective on sort of a bunch of different facets in the industry, from distribution to technology to retail delivery, from my background at Blackbird. And I think that that experience is sort of unique to me, and I think definitely I hope beneficial for Tilt. So yeah, I mean, some of the conversations I'm having here at Benzinga, like the one you and I just had, are really sort of specific to how technology can help accelerate our business. And I believe strongly that it can, if done correctly. So
because you guys have a great base. I mean, the product is great. I know because I've personally tried it several times.
Yeah.
So you guys have the product out there. You've got good stores, and then just being able to use and introduce technology to create efficiencies, I think, is a great strategy for you guys to have. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we want to find the best ways that are in our lane to support our brand partners. And we've done that in a lot of different ways historically, but going forward, sort of the refinement of our strategy is going to be focused on hardware through our Jupiter Research inhalation business, cultivation and manufacturing through the assets that we have in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Massachusetts, and hopefully more markets soon. And then distribution, which includes our own retail stores as well as our third-party network of retail stores.
So one of my favorite parts about Tilt is they early on as a team recognize that brands are going to be very influential in the industry. I think a lot of MSOs kind of took a back seat to that and said, hey, we don't want to bring in anybody else to sell our products for us. We don't need to pay them for us. We have it. I live in the Florida market, and that was until recently. There were no brands because nobody wanted to pay to sell their own product. And then now all of a sudden you have all these great brands and all these great personalities with those brands that made a name for themselves in California with a small cultivation, and they're looking to spread out to the rest of the country. And now a lot of the multi-state operators have finally realized what you all realized. And they're like, oh, brands are important. Like they drive business in the door. So I'm curious to know, how much are brands going to be a part of the Tilt strategy going forward?
They're everything. They're 100% our strategy, because we have a platform that supports some of the largest brands in cannabis today. And we see an opportunity to support them through more touch points in the value chain. And so that's exactly like what we have been doing for a couple of years now, and sort of refining that strategy to focus on specific brands that work well on our platform because some of the proven success they've had in other markets. And then we can help expand them into new territories. And so brands are 100% the most important part of our strategy going forward.
So as someone who's a fan of the industry and the products in the industry, How much fun is it meeting with brands?
I mean, I love it, man. I mean, I love it. You know, my company that Blackbird was sold to Herbal in 2021, and
So you've always been around tons of brands.
always been around tons of brands. Have a real appreciation for how the consumer is delighted by a brand that they relate to, right? And I think like the talk for a long time has been really there's no brand equity in cannabis. I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Yes.
And I believe that brands are connecting with consumers today in a way that they haven't in the past. But brand equity is real in cannabis, and it can persist across markets with brands that understand who their consumer is and why they're trying to sell to that person.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, I don't believe that there's no brand loyalty in the sense that this is my brand, this is what I'm always going to get, because I think cannabis consumers are always curious as it is. But I guarantee you, if I go into California and they have Alien Labs and Connected, there's a good chance I'm going to pick that up. If they have CBX, there's a good chance I'm going to pick that up. I always, and maybe it's because I'm in the industry, there are other brands I always like to pick and choose because I'm always curious. But I think everyone has their mainstays and then the stuff that they want to try.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's no different when you go to a restaurant that you love, right? There may be a dish that you want to get every time. Here and there, you might try a different appetizer or dessert. I think cannabis is not so different, right?
That's the most true thing you've ever said, because imagine you go to a restaurant and you find a dish that was like one of the best things you've ever had, but you know it's an overall good restaurant. So you go the second time, you're like, I really want this. I've had it already. I'm scared if I get this that it's not going to be as good as
yeah, absolutely.
I get that anxiety all the time when I go out to eat. So that was literally not to like derail the conversation, but it's an informal show. We went to dinner at Joe's across the street last night.
Good, right?
They had great steaks on the menu, but in my head, I'm from South Florida, so Jones Stone Crabs. I'm like, I want to get this steak, but they're known for seafood. So how do I do that?
Totally, man. What'd you get?
Got a grilled seafood platter, and we got stone crabs, and it was absolutely incredible.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, I mean, it's Joe's is a Miami staple. So Tilt brands are the future of Tilt. You guys are enabling it with technology. It sounds like things are moving forward. Is there anything that we can look forward to in the future coming from you guys? How soon will I see you in Florida acquiring a license? Anything along those lines, maybe Texas, maybe somewhere else.
Can't talk about specific markets, but what I would tell you is like expanding.
You can tell me when the camera shuts off, but tell them what you can.
I'll tell them. I mean, expansion in product innovation. So from a hardware standpoint,
so let me stop you a second there.
Yeah, please.
That's got to be something really cool to have. Is you have all these companies that have really perfected extraction and been able to do that, but you guys actually have a hardware company where you can come out with super unique products from the vape standpoint. Because I think we are just on the extreme cusp of what vaping is going to be.
We've just touched like what that pie will ultimately be. Like the industry has really wholeheartedly embraced oil, but there's been some sort of like toe dipping into concentrates. There's been some toe dipping into flower and how you sort of vape those different form factors that will ultimately, I think, grow the pie for inhalation hardware.
I'm excited for that because vapes are great. They're super convenient, but for me, they're a necessary evil, right? Because of the way society, I treat joints like cigarettes still. Like you spark up outside the hotel. Like I don't want to be around kids or anything else like that. But I also wouldn't do that with any kind of tobacco product too. But I enjoy consuming cannabis when I go out. I like to go see comedy, music, and everything else. For the most part, it's a lot easier to hit a vape. Going into a restaurant, doing something like that, it's very hard to find, okay, let me go find an area away from everybody. I'll go spark this up and smoke it for the next 5-6 minutes. So I feel like vape technology really has to catch up because you do not get the same effects from a vape that you get from a joint. I keep chasing the vape that's going to replace flower for me, and there's just not anything that's there. Some of the companies put out some really good live rosin pods, but I think that's the closest we've gotten to.
I don't disagree with that comment and look forward to maybe changing your mind here in the future.
I will happily volunteer for R&D.
I love it, man. I love it. Cool. We'll absolutely take you up on that.
Well, we got to head to the awards ceremony. Cool. So it's been great catching up with you, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Awesome, dude.
Always appreciate it.
Seeing you.
Yeah.